We are following another breaking story from Washington on this busy Tuesday. At least I think it's Tuesday. This one involving the FCC, saying it's going to call for an early review of Disney licenses as a result of an ongoing investigation into the company's DEI practices. Now, DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, an FCC official says they've been investigating Disney's DEI program since March of last year, and current FCC Chair Brendan Carr told Katie Miller on her podcast. Katie Miller is Stephen Miller's wife, part of the administration. He told her on her podcast, quote, evidence suggests that Disney was dividing and categorizing employees based on race and gender, and potentially we'll see what the evidence establishes, ultimately giving different opportunities to people based on their race or gender or other protected class. Now, the FCC official I quoted previously says licenses come due every so often, but if there's significant concern about how a broadcaster is conducting their operations, the FCC can call for an early review. Now, let's go ahead and bring in CBS Saturday Morning co-host and CBS News Money Watch correspondent and CBS News 24/7 anchor Kelly O'Grady. Any other titles I'm missing? No, that covers it?
That covers it, yeah.
Dog mom.
That's an important one.
Biggie's mom. Okay, so getting serious, though.
Yeah.
This is coming in the wake of attacks on Disney's Jimmy Kimmel from their Late Show. Mm-hmm. He made a joke prior to the White House Correspondents' Dinner Saturday that many felt was in poor taste. He had told Melania Trump that she has the glow of an expectant widow. She made a rare rebuke on social media, essentially saying that he should not be able to go into people's house night after night. And there have been calls to boycott advertisers, pressure on Disney. This is not the first run-in between Jimmy Kimmel and the administration. This is not the first time that Brendan Carr has weighed in on Disney. But what are you grappling with as you're wrapping your mind around this news of this investigation into Disney for alleged DEI practices? Yeah,
so a couple of things. I mean, I think it is, you're right to highlight that this is coming on the wake of that announcement, or that those comments by Jimmy Kimmel. That being said, it is going back to March of 2025. I actually have the tweet, or the post, I should say, on X pulled up from FCC Chair Brendan Carr. And this was on March 28th, 2025, when he said, we're going to investigate this. And I'll just read you a little bit of it. He said, as you may know, the Communications Act and Commission rules prohibit regulated entities like Disney's ABC from discriminating on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, age, or gender. Indeed, the FCC's longstanding equal employment opportunity set forth specific requirements for which Disney's regulated operations must adhere. So let's put that in plain English. Basically, going back to March of last year, what he's saying is that if Disney were to have engaged in discrimination because of their DEI initiatives, that there is an argument to be made that they should not have these licenses, these broadcast licenses. So what it sounds like is going to happen is there's going to be a review. Disney owns and operates 8 stations. That would include Chicago, that would include New York, a number of large markets. It doesn't own and operate all of the ABC stations. It licenses out content to some of them. But for those 8, they would now go through a review process.
These are what we call in the biz O&Os, right?
Exactly.
Owned and operated by, because the other affiliates that you're talking about could be owned by other media companies, but they license the ABC. And really quickly, before you go into the process, just to reiterate what you were saying, the social media posts you were reading in March, this predates those controversial comments from Jimmy Kimmel in the wake of the Charlie Kirk shooting.
Yes, and I think that's important because a lot of people might look at this and say, well, this is convenient timing, but this investigation was going on before, before,
I mean,
right?
The announcement could have something to do with this renewed.
That I think is what some people are speculating, but indeed this investigation has long predated those comments and the frustration that the administration expressed on that. The thing, though, is that just because they are reviewing these licenses, which were up, which were up in 2028, so this is a really pulling forward that review by nearly 2 years, likely. This is something that doesn't happen. So this is pretty historic in the fact that there would be an early review. But it's going to take a really long time. And of course, you would expect many of these stations to push back, go to court over this. If it were to be revoked, this is going to be a long hearing and legal process. I think the question, though, is if it were to get to that point, I mean, are these stations, is there the appetite to do that? This would be very costly. And I think if you go back to the last time that Disney and ABC and Jimmy Kimmel were engaged in a tussle, if you will. This was after comments made after the Charlie Kirk assassination. Ultimately, what happened is there was a little bit of capitulation on the part of ABC because they were getting calls from a lot of their stations that they don't own saying, we're getting concerns from our advertisers. We're getting concerns from our viewers. And ultimately, Jimmy Kimmel did end up back on the air. But there can be how should I put this? There can be resolutions that are outside of taking away a broadcast license.
Well, and it wasn't just Disney who had suspended him, but I believe a local media group, at least one, Nexstar, I believe, had been saying that they were going to hold off on, they were going to offer alternate programming.
That's right.
In lieu of Jimmy Kimmel. Okay, so, and I'm just going to ask my control room, Bill, can you repeat what you said? All right, so can you help me understand, because you have it still pulled up, what the March 2025, essentially was Brendan Carr just saying that he wanted to open, and now this is the investigation, this is the announcement that they are opening the investigation? What is the difference between that announcement and the one we have today?
So the one in 2025 is that was an investigation that was opened about these DEI practices. What we are learning today, we're expecting to come forth quite soon, is that they are now going to actively review the broadcast licenses that Disney holds for those 8 owned and operated stations. So this was an investigation based on the results of their investigation, which they have not released yet. You would assume that something like that would come out in the near future. They have decided that it warrants a full review of whether ABC should have those licenses. I think the other things that are sort of coming to mind here is, let's put that aside. Obviously, that would be catastrophic for Disney and for ABC to lose these licenses. But there's other things that could happen as well. I mean, advertisers, as they're thinking about advertising with Disney and ABC, maybe they say, wow, this doesn't maybe seem to be something that we want to put our ad dollars against. There seems to be a lot of frustration and confusion and sort of turmoil that's happening there. Another thing that I'll bring up is, remember, Disney just announced their new CEO. And so this is the first really big test for Bob Iger's successor that is going to be a very public, played out fight potentially with the administration. That's another thing to consider, as this sort of plays out.
Okay, lots still to chew on in terms of the implications of this, but we appreciate you giving us the bird's eye view. Kelly O'Grady, thank you as always.